and Ken Show. John Cobell and Ken Champeau, KFI AM 640.
All right, coming up, we're pretty soon going to see a verdict in the El Chapo trial. 11 weeks, most of it the prosecution's case. We'll talk about the latest with the closing arguments coming up. And we will talk at the Health and Science Desk about the anti-vaccine parents and a demographic profile, which might interest you. That's coming up later on this hour here on KFI.
All right, we're going to talk now with Brian Claypool. He's an attorney with the Claypool Law Firm. He's been on the show many times for a lot of cases he's been involved with involving child sex abuse. He coincidentally also was at the famous Las Vegas shooting in October of 2017.
The Route 91 Harvest Festival. Right?
58 people got killed there. Hundreds were shot at and wounded. And it was Stephen Paddock sitting on the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort. And he was leaning out the window and just going to town on that open lot where the concert took place. And Claypool was there. And now we have reports coming out after many, many months of investigation.
Yeah, it's the FBI. And they've already previously reported that Paddock acted alone. We all knew that. But in terms of trying to come up with a motive, about the only thing they can see, because there's no clear motivating factor, and he did not leave behind manifestos, no online profiles, no real hints, is maybe he was seeking some form of infamy. He was apparently in deteriorating health, both mentally and physically.
So go to Brian. How are you, Brian?
Hey, thanks. I appreciate you guys having me on with this topic.
I remember one of the last times we had you on, you talked about all the trauma that you were still going through from the shooting. Is that still happening?
Well, funny you ask. It's improving for sure. I've been working out with a personal trainer 4 days a week. I'm still in therapy on average about twice a month. But I'll tell you, it just pops up out of nowhere. The other day, I was driving to my office. My little girl had gone to school earlier in the morning, and I literally just broke down crying at a stoplight. Why? Because for some reason, I felt like I wasn't going to see my little girl grow up. In other words, I thought I was going to, like, something bad's going to happen to me and I'm going to die before my little girl grows up. And a lot of victims of the Vegas shooting are going through this. They have fatalistic, catastrophic thoughts that just pop up out of nowhere, and we all think we're going to die. It's like that movie Final Destination, where you think you're going to die because you probably should have died at the Vegas shooting. So that's really one of the biggest things I'm still coping with.
And that's what you talk about in therapy, are these panic attacks that you have?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, panic attacks, and then the anxiety is another big one. And that's in the context of, like, we all are living our everyday lives. So the world doesn't stop when somebody goes through major trauma. And that's a real battle. And I'm still struggling with that. I run a law firm. I'm a single parent. And I get very overwhelmed, and then the shooting filters in, and what helps me in therapy is to manage my responsibilities. In other words, I prioritize. My therapist helps me realize that I'm doing an okay job. My daughter's number one. Hey, how are you doing as a dad? Well, you're there for her. You're delivering the goods. Your law firm, number two. How's that going? I'm holding on to things. So it's part about validation that you're doing okay, because we all think we're not doing that great.
And hundreds of people are going through the same thing, the hundreds of other people who survived. And I imagine the hundreds that were affected by that shooting in Thousand Oaks a few months ago.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. No, I commented on that as well. I mean, they're going through that too, and it's a life-changing event. I mean, you don't want to be around crowds. Another thing, too, is you don't trust your surroundings. That's another big thing for all these victims. Anybody involved in a traumatic shooting like that, you just don't trust your surroundings. So it's a life-changing event.
What did you get out of this FBI report that the only reason they could come up with is that Paddock wanted to be famous before he left the planet?
Dude, I'm telling you, a big goose egg, okay? You call this an FBI report? I mean, a 2.5-page report after – you should have read the first paragraph. I'm sure you did. Oh, after 15 months of copious investigation, and they created what's called a Las Vegas review panel. Here are our findings, and the findings are exactly what you said. Basically, what we all knew. And I'll tell you this: what people across this country want to see, not just the victims. I'm not a crybaby victim on your show, just saying what I want. look, anybody who wants to live in a safer country would want to have known what went wrong to allow this douchebag mental case to be able to carry out such a mass shooting in a civilized society. That's what we were hoping for, some kind of investigation into the breach of security at the Mandalay Bay. But 15 months later, we have two law enforcement agencies that are in collusion to make sure to preserve the integrity and the image of the multi-billion-dollar business of casinos in Vegas.
What do you
That's
think?
a tragedy, dude.
What do you think MGM, the parent company, what should they have done during that time that Paddock was staying there? What is it that they should have known? How would they have known it? How should they have reacted?
Yeah, great question. Well, and you can't answer that question in a vacuum. Your listeners need to know all the full facts leading up to the shooting. And 6 months prior to that shooting, there was a credible ISIS threat of a lone wolf gunman that was going to attack casinos in Vegas. Hello, that's called red flag warning. What people don't know is every month, all the casinos in Vegas were meeting with Sheriff Lombardo, his crisis team, with Federal Homeland Security. All these casinos, you guys, were supposed to be ramping up their security to be on higher alert. For example, have security guards that have guns, right? None of the guards at Mandalay Bay had a gun. Don't let guests use freight elevators. Look for suspicious bags. This guy stayed there, 3 or 4 days and carried up what?
All right. Was he too far out of the range of how you'd profile an ISIS member?
No. I think what the real problem is the culture of this this world of high rollers within these casinos. They are pampered. They're pampered more than a Playboy playmate. I mean, you can do whatever you want as a high roller. As long as you're spending money, they will look the other way. The cultures that are propagated in these casinos, in my opinion, aided and abetted this Paddock to get away with this. Look at the housekeeping rules. I mean, they broke the rules there. Every other casino, you're supposed to be, every 24 hours you're in there. Where were the alarms on the windows? There were no alarms. They're supposed to be. Where's the video surveillance in the hallways? There wasn't any. There should have been.
Can you hang on, Brian?
Yeah, no problem, dude.
All right, we're talking to. Thanks, dude. We're talking to Brian Claypool, attorney with his own law firm, and of course been on our show many times before over topics concerning the sex abuse of students and such at schools. But he happened to be in Vegas on October 1st, 2017, at the festival, the Route 91 Harvest Festival, when the gunfire broke out from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. The shooter, Stephen Paddock, killed 58 people, injured many more. There's been a new FBI report on the shooting, but what Brian's going through, which is kind of fascinating, is really the lapse on the part of security. MGM owns Mandalay Bay. He says it goes beyond that. Like, it seems like the whole city is protecting the vaunted casino industry there. We'll talk more with Brian when we come back.
John and Ken, Brian Claypool.
Yes, Brian Claypool is our guest, an attorney, got his own law firm. And also he was there October 1st, 2017, the Route 91 Harvest Festival. That's the country music show in Vegas that Stephen Paddock fired at from a room at the Mandalay Bay 32nd floor hotel suite. And he killed 58 people, wounded many more. And it's back in the news because the FBI just put out a report about motive. But we were talking to Brian about a lot he has learned concerning the security situation in Las Vegas and what was not done by MGM. MGM owns Mandalay Bay and their liability in all this. So let's talk some more with Brian about this.
Is there a big cover-up going on? It seems obvious for obvious reasons to protect the casino industry.
Yeah, absolutely. And before the break, you had asked the $1 million question. What should Mandalay Bay have done differently? Why should they have been on high alert? Well, during the break, I thought of two important points I wanted to share with you.
Go ahead.
Number one, 2 or 3 years ago, there was a convicted felon who was on probation, who was in one of those Mandalay Bay rooms high up on the floor with an iPod with a rifle facing toward the Vegas Strip. And he was arrested before he shot at people on the Vegas Strip. A lot of people don't know about that. Why is that important? Because that answers your question. 3 years ago, this billion-dollar company, MGM, was on notice that a mentally unstable person in a upper room like that facing the Strip can carry out mass violence. Why is that important? Because you better improve your security. The second point I want to make, the only good point that I saw in that FBI report was finding number 8. And that said that the FBI determined that Stephen Paddock picked the optimal, perfect location to carry out mass violence. It went on to say, wow, 32nd floor, panoramic view of all these, this is a quote, of all these unsuspecting and vulnerable, me and a lot of others, sitting out at that country western concert. So that was such an important point in the findings because it proves my point that I've been trying to make for 15 months, that we need to take a close look at the failed security here to make sure, not only casinos, but hotels and the high-rise buildings, to make sure this doesn't happen again. And we live in a society where there's been a cover-up for 15 months, where 2 law enforcement agencies got together and said, we're going to protect the image of this big business, this casino business, and we're not going to even talk about. Have you guys ever heard one person from law enforcement in 15 months talk about one thing that MGM and Mandalay Bay did wrong?
No.
Has anybody? No.
No.
Yeah.
In fact, we know Paddock scouted out several other festivals before he chose that one to shoot at.
Exactly. That's a great point. That proves the point. That helps prove my point I've been trying to get out there, which is it was obvious. It's a no-brainer, guys. You don't need to be a PhD graduate to figure this out. I was on the 26th floor. Did you guys know that? I was on the 26th floor. I went back into my room the day after. I looked to the left. What did I see? His blown-out window from my window looking at this panoramic view of carnage. That's the point. That's what this finding said. This guy scouted everywhere. What was the easiest place to carry out mass violence so this loser mental case can go out in infamy, like you said? Well, it's the Mandalay Bay, a place where they cut corners to save $4 an hour to hire security dudes without any guns so they can save money. I mean, that's the society we live in, and we have law enforcement that could care less about safety in our country, all for the sake of money. Greed is like an IV in the veins, not only of the big business, but now
how do you make them care? That's one of the things that I really struggle with on a lot of issues is how do you make them care? And when it's like PG&E here in California, they burned down 12,000 homes, killed 100 people, and in the end, the executives ran off with millions of dollars in golden parachute money. To this day, they don't care. They never tried to do anything to protect people against the fires. And the people in Las Vegas at this hotel never did anything to protect the festival goers from getting shot. I mean, if you have all these corporate guys don't care, what do you do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I wish I had an answer for you because you know what I was hoping for? And it's not just me. If you guys have kids, people have kids out there, your listeners, they're going to grow up and they're going to be at a concert. You know, this is about the people in the future, like not wanting to get killed when they're trying to enjoy their life. And I thought, realistically, that law enforcement would come in, somebody from the federal government, somebody would at least appoint like an independent agency. Sometimes you've seen that in sexual abuse cases where an independent person or agency comes in to do an investigation. I was praying for that.
Yeah, well, there's nobody wealthier than Las Vegas casino owners, and you know many of them are intimately involved with a lot of political campaigns on both sides. So yeah, I can't imagine any politician in Washington doing anything to stop that gravy train.
That's a great point, and that gets to your answer. And I got bad news for everybody that's listening. I mean, because I lived through this. All right, there's not a lot of hope on the horizon for us to live in a safer society. And I know I got to end soon, but I got to tell you, during that first round of shots, okay, when I thought I was dead for sure, I never thought I'd get out of there. I was covering my head because I wanted to protect the bullet from hitting my brain, and I said to myself, my God, if I ever live through this, I have got to get to the bottom of how this can happen. in a society we live in. And guess what? Here I am 15 months later, and I'm not 1/8 of an inch closer to ever getting an answer. And that should scare all of us. This entire country should be terrified of the place that we live in.
Brian, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you bet.
All right, Brian Claypool, attorney, and of course, one of those who was there at the Las Vegas mass shooting 15 months ago.